Welcome to Wild and Exposed, your number one adventure, nature, and outdoor photography podcast. Wild and Exposed is hosted by Michael Mauro, Ron Hayes, Jason Loftus, and Mark Raycroft. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome to another episode of Wild and Exposed podcast. We got a full crew today. Michael Mauro coming to us from Alaska, Jason Loftus coming to us from Utah, and Mark Raycroft from Ontario, Canada. Michael.
Yes.
How was the earthquake, or did you guys even feel it?
Didn't even feel it. It was tsunami warnings, but that wasn't for around here as much as down on
it said it was like
Kenai Peninsula.
25 miles or, I don't know, it's a long ways underwater.
Yeah, and I think it was out on the Aleutians, which I'm not sure how far. I was going to look at that and just see how far, my air miles wise, or as a crow flies, how far it was from Anchorage. But it's got to be, I don't know. I don't even want to sound stupid and say something.
8.2 is a biggie. There'd probably be some aftershocks on that one.
Yeah, and I didn't even hear if there were any tsunamis at all anywhere close by or not.
I don't know why, but I was watching the reports and they said they took all the warnings off. So it didn't sound like, Mark, you're shaking your head. Were you watching it?
Oh, it was just in the news feeds. Yeah, there didn't seem to be any. But I did see a truck on all the photographs or all the news feeds of these vehicles coming down out of Homer, and it looked like Mike's truck in front. It's like, man, go Mike, get out of there. It's the only Toyota in Alaska, right?
Yeah. Yep. I got the only one. It's highly sought after.
It sounded like it was a scare and a lot of people were going to higher ground, but it didn't seem to come to fruition.
That's good.
Lots of media, though, because, 8.2 is a biggie.
That's a big one. Yep.
Yeah, I was thinking, too. I mean, can you imagine if you were on the Homer Spit or anywhere on that coast and the tsunami did hit, it would be...
And the siren goes off and you and everybody else is trying to get off of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a bad day. And Jason, you are actually headed a lot closer to the epicenter than Mike is currently. You ready for some aftershock action?
Yeah, my luck, that was the teaser, and the big one will hit when I get there.
Yeah, let's hope not. But yeah, it was a big one. It was a scare for folks up there, but it sounds like, from what Mark saw and what I've seen, it all went about as good as it could have gone, having it be that far off the shore. So it's been a while since we've all been together and done one of these, and going to do some pro tips tonight. How's everybody been?
Been good. Been really good here.
Fantastic.
Have you gotten out?
It's been some, yeah. It's been so long, I'm embarrassed to say I probably have 2 or 3 more gray hairs in my goatee or on my head. It's been a while, guys.
That one in your nose that we got plucked out of there before the show started.
Oh, you're such a funny guy. There was nothing there. Playing with my chain, buddy. Arr, get the junkyard dog going. But yeah, no, things have been fine. Things are opening up. There's a lot of excitement. The Canadian border is opening in a couple of weeks for our American friends that are vaccinated. That's good for tourism. It was a bit of a surprise, not to be political, that it wasn't reciprocated, because you would think the northern part of the U.S. would want the Canadians to get in there and spend their money too. But maybe August 21st is what it looks like for that. I do have plans at some point to get down to the Adirondacks in New York, but obviously I'm not going to fly for that distance. What you can do, it's all a bit odd, but to drive, so it'll be later, well, be a month anyway, or close to it. But it's exciting. A lot of things are opening up and less stress, which is a big deal after this year. So it's been good lately. Not as much anxiety going out, because it's the case count of whatever that virus was called, I seem to forget, but I don't, is way down in where we are in Canada, thankfully. So it's, been out photographing deer. It's one of my favorite summertime things to do. The fawns running around, bucks in velvet. How about you, Ron?
I've tried to get out and get some fawns. I was in Colorado last weekend for a family reunion, and we took one day, went up to Rocky Mountain National Park, and actually saw more moose than I did elk for the first time ever. 2 really nice bulls, and one he's a monster for a Shiras elk, which are Shiras moose, which are the smallest of the moose in North America. He was a big, respectable bull. And then, the smoke was intense, but the smoke provided a couple opportunities. One valley, it just made all the layers of ridges coming down and in and out of this valley. Every little drainage that came into this valley, it just intensified the ridge lines, and to get an image in that smoke was pretty spectacular. I honestly thought about going back and shooting it again, since the fires are still rolling down there. It's definitely a landscape worth exploring a little bit and finding the best angle for. So that's been good. But other than that, I've been doing a lot of commercial stuff and a lot of learning. I've been taking a course on editing to try to expedite that process. Yes, Michael, it sucks. It's like starting over. I feel like I can jump into Lightroom. I can do anything that anybody could do in Lightroom. Jump into Photoshop, and I'm still kind of a novice there, but editing, I'm in the way beginner stages of using Final Cut or Premiere, either one, and being able to get things edited quickly. I can get it done, but getting it done quickly and efficiently is a different story. So I'm working on that, and all these classes, everybody's got their little tips and tricks, and it's fun to explore different styles and find one that works for me.
Is that all online, or what are you doing?
It's all online. Yeah. About a 48 terabyte RAID system, because the video files are humongous, and trying to decide how to organize those and keep those is that 48 terabytes is already a quarter gone just with what I have now. So it goes fast. And then I also am doing what Mike does for his backups, just get the little externals, the 8 terabyte external, and for either a project or my files for the year. And then I have a backup that I can keep elsewhere, keep in a safe in another location, that kind of thing. So it's a big deal once you start working for other people, making sure those files stay secure and that you have backups. So that's going to be, when we get into pro tips, I'm going to get into that a little bit more in depth, but yeah.
So Mike, real quick, because he just brought that up, on a shoot, like if you went and did a 2-week long shoot and it was for, working for whoever, what kind of memory would you take just to be prepared? How many terabytes of data of storage would you take?
On the last one we just did was 14 days. It took 50 terabytes.
50 terabytes. Wow.
And part of that is your backup?
Yeah. So half. So 25 terabytes was what we thought we would shoot. And we did. We filled it up. So I just take the 5 terabyte LaCie or 5 terabyte G-Tech or G-Ray. G-Tech, I think is what they are. They're the little rugged drives with the rubber around them. So I just take 5 terabytes for the main and master, and then I take 5 for the safety. And then when I finish a job, I send the masters to the client, and then I keep the safeties. And as soon as they have it dumped onto their system, then I erase the safeties and use them on the next job.
Wow.
And that's the 10-day project that we did. We only had, Mike had multiple guys filming on Reds, and they're huge files. We only had one guy. The demand for memory was a little bit smaller, but we still had, I think, 12 terabytes of memory. in 10 days. So
yeah, so that's why I've always refrained from buying the RAID like you did, Ron, just because if you're shooting a big project like that, you can fill up the whole project, the whole RAID with just one project. So there is no perfect solution nowadays for the amount of data we create. I just don't even know how to get around it. I have an old laptop that it does nothing but copy data from drives to other drives to free up drives it just is constantly copying something to somewhere to try to free up these drives to, you always want the little drives to manage your stuff in the field. And then when you get back, you can put it on bigger drives. And the only difference between the little drives and the bigger drives is the bigger drives require power. So if you're using these little LaCi's or the little G-Tech, they're powered through the connection, the USB-C connection. But if I'm going to put it on like an 8 terabyte, really slow Seagate drive, those drives require power. So you have to be plugged into the wall somewhere. So it's just, they're super slow and but for backups, it's fine. If it's just something that you would just want to make sure that you don't lose, that's great. But you have to do that when you're back, at the home base or whatever. And that seems to make the most sense. But I just don't want to tie up all the ports on my, excuse me, I don't want to tie up all the ports on my MacBook, because that's the downside with the MacBook is you only have on the MacBook Pro, there's only 4 ports and one's for power. So then you're down to 3 ports for managing all your data. So when I'm out on an assignment too, I use a program called ShotPut. It's called ShotPut Pro. And that basically the fastest way to do it in the field is, so on this last job, we shot Red, we shot Phantom, we shot GoPro, we shot drone, we shot a little bit of iPhone stuff. So if different people do it different ways, but what I do is I take a solid state drive, a 2 terabyte solid state drive. So right when we're in for the day, I'll put all my data in organized files on the solid state drive. And then I can use this program called ShotPut that'll then take it from the solid state drive to the master drive and to the safety drive all at once. So it's making that multiple copies. And then what it does is a checksum, or it verifies that all the drives are the exact same. And so I let it do it overnight. So if you're going from a solid state drive, which is a fairly fast drive with the USB-C connection, to these USB-C LaCie or rugged drives, that will take 6 to 8 hours for up to 2 terabytes. So it has to be done overnight. If you don't do it all off of one drive, then what you're doing is you're setting your alarm for an hour from now. You go get to sleep, and then you come in and put a new card in. So there's people that still do it that way. But if you can get everything on one drive, then go to the 2 drives, you're going to get a good night's sleep.
Ron and I are on the same page. I just ordered a 48 terabyte RAID 5 LaCie tower to get that rolling. But I was just going to talk about the different RAIDs. But the solid state drive, that's the way to go. But they're just not cost effective yet for massive storage. And are you looking at 2 terabyte for a solid state? What's kind of max for price point now? And again, you pay a lot more currently, right? 5 years from now, it'll probably be normal.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't even know if they're bigger than 2 terabytes right now.
For
maybe
portable
they are.
ones. Like I know
for the little one.
Yeah.
They have a 4 terabyte. That's the little portable passport type. But the SanDisk ones that you got at Costco, I think those are only go up to 2 terabytes.
Yeah.
Those smaller ones, and those are really slick, but they aren't very big yet. Mm-hmm. But that technology is improving all the time, because it just basically went from 2 to 4 in the last year. So it's coming along fairly quickly.
Well, in the MacBook, my MacBook's 7 or 8 years old, and so I've been watching for the new MacBook Pro to come out this winter with the supposed M2 chip and all that sexy stuff. But you can get 8 terabyte solid state in the new MacBook Pros, the big ones. But it's like the price point when you go from 4 to 8. Sit down when you look it up. I mean, it's just incredible compared to what you can get for externals. So, I mean, I don't know whether we should just digest this stuff now or we can come back to it about the RAID, but.
Well, I think we're on it. Let's just do it. But
yeah,
the only good thing about the solid state is the speed, and like I said, the only reason I can see using them is exactly what I've been doing is you get all your media there and then you let that go when there's a chunk of time. So if you want to let it copy the whole next day while you're out in the field, if you have consistent power, or you want to have a copy overnight while you're sleeping, that just provides that sort of hands-off thing and not having to babysit each card or each piece of media, whether it's from the GoPro or from the Red or from a Phantom or from a DSLR. That way, everything is just manageable. But in that case, too, you have to verify that stuff's there, because I have to erase those drives every day. Well, I have like 4 2-terabyte solid state drives, right? So I can hold on to it, and I do. I just, having 3 or 4 copies is kind of nice, just in case something was to happen. So if we have a really, really good day of shooting, sometimes I'll just never format that card until I get back and can put it on another card or another hard drive somewhere else. So essentially I'll have 3 copies, but that's on just those really, really good days, just something where you're like, everything came together. We got a lot of good sequence stuff. We got a lot of good light. So that's why I carry the 4 of the 2-terabyte drives, the SSDs. And then that just is like a third backup, because you have to erase the media in the cameras every day too, right? So you have to format everything. And the clients that I work for, they're very stringent about handing over data. Has to be very structured and you can't eliminate. You can't say, oh man, I totally screwed up the focus on this. I don't want anybody to see it. I'm not going to send that file. That doesn't fly. You have to send every file that was shot, good or bad or ugly. You have to submit it. So, there's no getting around the data requirements. You just need to have all that space.
Yeah, and right now I looked up that 4-terabyte drive, the solid state, and it's a Western Digital, and it's like $670. So
is it external or internal?
It's external. It's about the same size as the other ones, the SanDisk ones, but.
Well, solid state should theoretically be more reliable without the moving parts of the other external hard drives. But when you still, for me, I haven't gone that route for the most part, because when you look at the Western Digital, Seagate, or Lacey external hard drives, 8 terabyte, you're looking about $200, 12 terabyte, $300, 16 terabyte, $400 to $500. So, you get a couple of those, you've got your backup. And they don't last forever, but they typically have good lifespans. I only had the odd one quit out on me, but I always.
So here's the trade-off to that, Mark. The R5, if you're shooting 8K video, and let's say you have a 1 terabyte card in there, that's 44 minutes.
Yeah.
So let's say you have a 10-day trip and you're shooting all 8K, which in my opinion, you should always shoot the highest resolution you can. So if you have enough memory and you got something going on and 8K is just right, shoot 8K, because you're future-proofing your stuff. So you start using all these little drives like you're talking about, they fill up really fast. But there's no easy answer for any of it. I think it all is predicated on, do you have power or do you not have power? Do you want to run on a US or a USB-C connection with no power? Then you got to go with the little ones. If you want to run on backup in the office scenarios, then I think it's best to go with the plug-in ones that are 8 terabytes that are super cheap. I think at Costco, you can get an 8 terabyte Seagate. If it's regular price, it's $170. And if you catch them on sale, they're like $130. That's super cheap, but they're super slow, for writing to it and copying.
Well, and just from my experience, and it's very limited, but what I found is the bigger the drive you get, too, it might be cheaper for the amount of memory you get because you're buying it all in one drive. but then it takes that much longer to back it up, and it takes that much long. And if it does crash, you lose that much more data. And I mean, there's a balance there, right? I mean, even with my memory cards for my camera, I try to, I like to shoot the 200 and what is it? 256 gigabyte CF Express cards. And it's just a matter, I'd rather switch a card out and have less data on there to potentially fail. You know what I mean? So I'm not losing like a whole trip versus just a day or something. I don't know. But there's a balance there, right? And you've got to just try to figure out what's the best situation for what you're doing. But.
Well, here's another little tidbit to add. So if I have 5 terabyte drives, anybody that I'm shooting for, they'll send you a spec sheet and they'll say, this is the format codec we want you to use. These are all the particulars. These are all the specs. They will always say if you have a 5 terabyte drive, they want 10% of that not used. So if you have 5 terabytes, you can use 4.5, but don't fill up the full 5. So drive performance drastically lessens the more full it becomes. So you never want to use it till it's totally full. You always want to leave that 10%. So just keep that in mind too. I mean, I know it's just kind of like wasting, you're wasting data, but in reality, I think you're just creating a peace of mind and then also having a faster drive.
Saving time. Time's important. Speed's important.
Well, that's the other caveat too to what I was saying before is it's all about speed. It's all about time. When I go on shoots, I love doing the data management. And it's just something I like to do. And every shooter that I go out with, they love that I love that because they hate it. So they hate it because it takes so much time. But I like it because I like to know that everything's managed, organized the way, I just have a system and it just works. So I like doing it. But you start counting up the hours. If we're on a shoot and we all get back, everybody will be done eating by the time I got the initial stuff copied over to the drives and everything getting ready to go to the master drives. And then I figure my day's done after that. So time is huge.
Have you guys heard of Delkin brand CF Express cards?
I use them.
So that's what I've ordered for something. But I've ordered 2 512s. They seem to be a heck of a lot cheaper too. Price point wise and good reviews online. But I'm thinking, and you just did the math for everybody, Michael, but at 8K, 512 gigabytes supposed to get 26 minutes. So doing little bursts of video can consume that pretty quickly. So if you're in the field for 10 hours, I'm thinking the fact I ordered 2 512 cards is not enough. What are your thoughts?
Well, not if you're going to shoot 8K the whole time.
Well, it'll be a combination of things, but it would be that. Yeah. So I'm thinking I'll have to get another 2 for field work to start with anyway.
But I think you're going down the line of you remember when these cards first came out and what do we all start out with? 16 gigabyte cards or whatever?
4. I had 4.
Yeah. I mean,
2.
Yeah.
I think I had 2 in compact flash.
Exactly. So you think back to those days and you're like, oh man, I'm not going to use a 16 or I'm not going to use a 32. Can you imagine the data we're going to lose if we lose 32 gigabytes? And so over time, I've just been like, it's just not worth worrying about it. Go with the biggest that you can afford. I just say go with the 2 terabytes just because they are pretty good.
You can't find
very
them.
Few problems. If you
There's
treat
such
them
a shortage,
right? Well, and there probably is. I know that they have them here in Alaska. So if you want me to go pick you up some, I can go get them. They've got them in stock down here. But the new Delkins are 2 terabytes. And I think they're only $100 more than the 1 terabyte. So why not spend $100 more for an extra terabyte?
Do you know what the price is on those off the top of your head? But yeah, that would be sweet because I can't find them. The biggest I can source right now from everywhere I looked was 512.
Mike with Precision Camera said that they're having trouble getting cards right now for the C70 that I got for the commercial stuff. And I've talked about a little bit, but it does have awesome 4Ks 120p, by the way. But anyway, he said with the C70 to shoot at 120 frames a second, you have to use the new V90 SD cards. So it takes 2 SD cards. It takes the V90 SD cards, and the biggest that he can get is 128 gigabytes. He can't get anything bigger than that right now, and he doesn't have many of those in stock. But
what is the deal with everything? Everything in this world is like, you can't get a hold of anything.
They said it's like the car shortage thing, getting new cars out. They said it was because they can't get the chips to replace in the new cars for the computers. So I would imagine if it's a chip issue, that's why memory is hard to find too.
Everything seems.
You all heard about the car shortage in Alaska, I'm sure, from the rental car. But you drive by any lot here, a car dealership, their lots are empty.
Mm-hmm.
So guess what this guy did? I put my van up for sale. I thought, what the heck? I'm going to sell it, and then I'll build another one just because it was fun.
Mike, before you sell it, it'd probably require some kind of insurance. You'd want to look into it. But, man, you could make a mint renting it out this summer and fall before you sell it.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
It's insane what the prices are for rentals. If you can find
Yeah, I
what
know.
you want.
I had heard they were renting those camper vans out for $350 a day.
Well, it was $300 a day down here.
Up to $5,000 for 2 weeks in Alaska.
Really?
So I bet up there it's even more. I think you're missing the boat.
You better get on that one.
No, I want to just
and the friends discount, of course. Just a special code.
Friends and family discount.
The idea guy gets a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, strange times. I tell you, everywhere. And everything's short. And for people I know in the car business, it's been their best year ever. In new cars too. I mean, I don't know if they're short yet, but it's nuts. Any trip that I've booked to anywhere that's popular for a rental car, have to come up with some other ideas. I mean, the age-old hack is to also, when you do your search, don't just put in the airport, put in the city. Because in the city, the same rental company, you take a cab for 15 minutes. And on one of the trips I've booked for this fall, the vehicle at the airport was twice as much as in the city. So I grabbed that one. And that was a relief because when I looked at it automatically to the airport, it was like, holy cow, the flight was nothing compared to what the rental car was going to cost.
Yeah, I know that's the case in Anchorage too. They've got some. I
looked off-site in Anchorage, and it's not any prettier from what I saw.
Really?
Not when I looked. It was a while ago now, but so Michael, we can brainstorm and come up with a really sexy name for your rental van business. Pro rigged wildlife nature photographer, ready to go sprinter van. Yeah. I'd get
That's a long name.
No, that's the subtitle. That's the subtitle. That's the .com. Yeah.
.com. Yeah.
Hashtag that. Yeah. No, geez. Crazy times. So that's it. I'm just thankful I don't have anything right this second, so I'm not stressed. But I'm soon going to be stressed. But I've done something that it should have been done a long time ago, but didn't need to be, is what you see is what you get world. I'm there. It's here, brothers. It's here, that mirrorless stuff. But I can't get a lens. Same thing. It's like I've ordered the lens and to start with, and it's supposed to be here, but nobody knows, right? There's no pipeline information. They say,
hold on. Which one did you order and which lens can't you get?
I ordered an R5. And so this is a big deal. I feel a little weird here because after like close to 30 years shooting Nikon, just Nikon, no complaints. I've loved every camera body I've had all along the way, like a dozen of them. But there's crickets out there now, and there's so much happening. I'm not waiting for this fall. So to be the hybrid dream photographer I want to be for these trips, so I got the R5 and I ordered the 1-500. For a small kit to be in the field, and it just seems ideal. The fact, there's so much going on. I can take it in a canoe, for instance, right? It's such a tiny rig, but for any of the hiking stuff. So it's just a good launching point. So gone to Canon. I had a Sony A1, a Sony AR7 IV or something, and 2 lenses. I was one evening away from ordering that kit. And Joe Sobolewski, I love you, man. Thanks for saving my butt on this decision. Not that there's anything wrong with the Sony stuff. The stats are off the charts. And our good friend of the podcast, Sean James, he's sourcing an A1 right now. The A1s seem to be the ticket. I researched. I YouTubed all kinds of reviews. So I was going to go Sony, and then Joe put up a video on Instagram on his page, which is awesome. His stuff is great. He's been on the podcast. Check all that out. Check out the podcast to hear about his birds in flight and also his page. But he put up a video because on one of our podcasts a couple of months ago, or maybe even been a month ago now, mentioned the concern about handheld video quality. And he put it up and tagged me on it and said, Mark, look at this, what he did with a 600 on the R5 filming the elk rut handheld. And it was phenomenal. But what he pointed out there, and I don't know if Ron chimed in on some text that night, the IBIS difference between the Sony technology and their lenses versus the R5 on an RF lens is it's 5.5 times the stabilization on the Sonys, I believe, but 8.5 on the Canon. And I actually saw a YouTube clip last night too, comparing the Sony A1 on the 2-600 versus the Canon R5 on the 1-5. And there were a lot of points outlined, but that was a big difference. If you want to do handheld video, the R5 on an RF lens had much better stabilization. So that was what changed it overnight. And then I placed that order. I just want to get out with it. But yeah, the 1-5, Mike, is 100 to 500 is what I'm waiting for. Everything's there. I found a think tank bag that's apparently really well reviewed that lines up for that kit, like a sling bag that's got external pockets. I don't have it in hand yet. I'll give some feedback once I've played with it in the field. But it seems like it'll just keep the whole kit lightweight that way and weatherproof and stuff. So. But yeah, the 1-500, I look out there. Apparently the Canon actual store, I didn't know there was one until I saw this. I looked today, they had some inventory, but it's gone. So hopefully there's some coming, but it's everything. Like Jason, like the 600, the new 600. And I think that's why it's crickets out there for so much of the new camera rumors, right? Things, if they can't make it, like, when's the R3 coming out? And I didn't go R3 because the 30 megapixel sensor can't do 8K. So my hope is the R5 is going to be, obviously most of the listeners know, a lot of people shoot it and it's great reviews. It's been out for a year almost now. My hope is the R5 is a great camera to do this hybrid shooting, but I'm really anxious to hear it might be next year, it might even be, who knows how long with the delay on parts and the chips, but the R1, what are they going to do with that? Right. That's where I'm. So anyway, it's a transition, but yeah, if you have a 1-500 in your pocket there, I've had opportunities in the past. It's just as short as right now. If I'd ordered it 6 weeks ago, I could have had it.
That 28-70. I have a friend that shoots portraits. He shoots real high end portraits, and he wanted that 28-70. Ordered one 3 months ago. Still hasn't seen it, so I offered mine up for sale for $4,500. It was a $2,800 lens. Well, I'm sure somebody would come up with a 100 to 500 if you just want it that bad.
Yeah, I'm not that desperate yet. I've been assured it will be here within a month, but I really don't believe anybody can guarantee that. So.
Well, I'll tell you what. If I get my 600. And you're still that desperate, let me know.
All right.
I was wondering if that's why this has been such a secret for so long, is because you felt bad about going away from Nikon, and did you cry?
You're at me today, brother. Okay. Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
I did the same thing, and I almost cried because it was hard to part with it.
Okay. Well, I haven't got to that emotional crisis state yet because I'm not parting with the 850.
You haven't sold it yet.
No, of course. I mean, I've got to get the R5. Months down the road, if the R5 is doing everything I want, then I'll be going more that direction. then that'll happen. And yeah, there'll be a little party. There'll be some celebration and crying, and some confetti, and off it'll go. But it was just weird because I've never had a complaint about what I've had for cameras or lenses with Nikon. And, we've had some great Nikon guests on, and a lot of talk about stuff and the two mirrorless lenses camera bodies that have come out, were fine. And the Z7 II is so close to the 850, but it doesn't pull off what the R5 can do. And then there's Nikon, as I've said this before, I want to keep this positive. It's like they're not even teasing us with stuff other than, there's going to be a Z9 and it's going to be amazing. But it's like, well, when and how amazing? It's just too ambiguous. So I can't miss. We missed last year from COVID. I'm not going to miss this year because I have equipment that's not as versatile as the most modern equipment is. So it was either Sony or Canon. I've been looking at Olympus too. We have a lot of friends of the podcast that love Olympus brand and are doing really well with it. And that whole pre-record business, has that appeal. But this compact kit, so don't hurt your neck. This compact kit is just hard to beat when you look at the size of a 1:5, even though it's 7:1 on the R5. I'm excited to play with that I like what you're saying too, Jason. I'm jumping around here, but the wide angle and the environmental portrait stuff, and wanting to do that as well. But just for the general large mammal, that kit of the 1:500 and the R5 seems like it'll be a lot of fun and super easy to tote around. So I can't wait. I've ordered, like you guys have advised me, which I'm very grateful for, but I ordered 4 extra batteries because that was a game changer, or a big shift, I should say, in the frame count that you get out of a battery. And I'm wondering if I even want more than that, just in case, you don't get the charge for a few days. It's 300. Well, you're frowning, Michael. 320 frames. I'm used to getting 2,000 or 3,000 frames, I think, on a battery.
Oh, no.
On my 850?
On my R5. Oh, on the R5?
No, the 850. So the R5 is rated to have 320 images for a battery, from what I've read online.
No.
Oh, good.
You'll get more than that.
You'll get about 1,000.
Oh, seriously?
That's what I've been getting.
All right. That's good news.
Pretty consistently.
Because I was picturing the whole John Wayne belt of batteries, like the old film days where you have a whole pouch of film.
Chewbacca with the chest straps.
Yeah. I did get the extra. The battery grip, so that'll give more battery life, but it adds weight too, right? And another fun little gadget is the Ronin. I got the new Ronin, the RS2. And
yep, I got that too. So it's fun.
Will the extra grip on the R5 cause any complications on that? Or do you need to drop it off to use it?
No, you don't. It's just harder to balance. You don't need to drop it off because the C70 will even fit on the RS2, and it's as big as a 1DX. You're still not as big as a 1DX, and you can run a 1DX easily on the Ronin. It's got powerful motors.
So here's my plan.
But it's just clearance that.
Right.
Sorry.
Well, you've tried it and I haven't yet. My Ronin's still in the box. I'm waiting for the R5 and everything at once. But my plan was to put it on the Ronin and balance it at just for a standard balance at maybe 300 for the wildlife, not 5 because there was some issue with extending the lens, right? I think you said but if I put it at 300 and that's just kind of my go-to for using the Ronin on the R5, do you think that's a good strategy out of the gate?
Yeah, and the other thing about the Ronin is it's got a little micro adjust wheel and it's got a geared. It's not motorized, but it's a geared slider on the mount.
It's a pro combo.
Yeah. Yep. So you can, if you're at 300 and you want to come back to 100 to widen things out a little bit, come back to 100 and just use that gear to make your adjustment. You only have to then balance one angle, out of the 3.
Okay.
So you can do that fairly quickly.
You could do that in a minute in the field. It wouldn't shut you down for long.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep. And you can lock the arms on that thing. So you're just isolating that one basically level that you have to balance.
Awesome. I'm stoked.
It's a pretty slick unit, and it's fairly lightweight. They went to the carbon fiber arms with that thing, so it took a lot of weight off of it.
So is the lens shortage worldwide, or is that just a Canada thing, or is it? Can you get the 1-5 in the U.S. or
It's everywhere.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was talking to Mike Luxembourg at Precision, and he was saying that the same thing. He's got a ton of 100 to 500s on back order, and yeah, my 600 still on order. They were supposed to start shipping the first part of July, and they haven't seen any yet.
So Mark, why don't you just pick up a 1-4 EF and get an adapter and start using it?
Well, because I'm told it could be here next week, and I like the extra stabilization of the RF on it.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. But if you have the Ronin, you're gonna solve that. So you would at least be able to be out shooting with that. Plus, if you bought the adapter that had the neutral density built in, then you don't have to fuss around with the neutral density on the end of the lens.
So it's one thing I have on my windows open are the neutral density. I've got to do that. And you're right. Yeah, you've talked about that a lot.
You might. I mean, it'd just be get you going.
I assume that the 1-500 being a new lens for the mirrorless, and again, this is just a guy being suckered into the glossy new stuff. I assume that glass might be a bit better than the 1-4 because it's just the new version.
1-4 is pretty sharp.
Right.
The 1-4 L2, the 2 version,
right,
is a pretty sharp lens. But the 100 to 500 Jason shot with it. I don't know, Mike, I've
spoke to people who really like it, but I haven't heard a comparison.
I don't think anybody's going to tell the difference between a 1-5 and a 1-4. In video especially. But in stills maybe you would if you're nitpicking it. But for a print up on the wall, I guarantee you nobody's going to say, oh, that was the 1-5. I doubt very seriously. Plus the 1-4 is 5.6 at 400.
All right. Let's jump into some pro tips. It's been a while since we've done a pro tip episode. So I think people are chomping at the bit, and we've all had the opportunity to think about this a little bit more this year than we have in the past. So Mike, you've been in the field more than any of us here lately. What's number one for you?
Oh, let's see. You know what I picked up the other day was all mine are always gear related, right? But, and I texted Jason on it the other day. It's a little device called the Zoleo. It's a satellite texter. So it's a lot like the Garmin InReach, but it's cheaper, I think, for the unit itself. I'm not sure. But the monthly service fee is a lot cheaper. So if you're ever in a situation where, and it happens in Alaska a lot, but even in the lower 48, it happens quite a bit. You have the ability to text or receive text. That's the other thing is the InReach. You basically have to initiate the text and then people can text you back. This basically gives you a number and anybody can text you at any time. So for communication, for me, it's important just to, when I'm shooting for some clients, they would like us to check in daily. So on this last shoot we were off the grid for 14 days. So there was just no way to do it. Unfortunately, someone that was on the trip had one of these Zoleos, and that's where I saw it. I'd heard about it before, but we had it there, and it's awesome. It works everywhere. And then the other thing it does is it's $50 a month for the service. Unlimited texts. You can get $30 a month for like 250 texts or whatever. But it works on Wi-Fi, it works on cell, it works everywhere. So you can have it going all the time. You don't have to just use it when you're off the grid. So if you're in the city, it works great too. So it's not like something that you have to turn off. If you decided to buy the service, it would, the $50 a month service, you can use it all the time if you wanted to. I've found that it works. I use it both ways. Off the grid and on the grid. And then if you're talking with other Zoleo people, it's really fast and really great communication tool. So just one of those little tidbits of Jason was trying to text me the other day, and I was down in the bottom of this canyon, and I had really limited service, and it would work if I was in a certain spot and I happened to get a text from Jason. But then when I got the text, I could not respond, but I had the Zoleo, so I just turned it on and responded. And then I was able to communicate with him all day, being totally out of cell phone range, but just doing it over the Zoleo.
Yeah, the one group that I've worked with, my contract got extended, but the other shooter wasn't here anymore. And they basically demand that you check in when you leave and check in when you get back, all that kind of stuff.
And it's a safety thing. It's not like they're trying to check up on you. It's just purely
a safety thing. Yeah.
But it just came in handy.
It's hard to get used to, though, when you're used to just going and coming and going when you want.
Right.
Good tip. I like it. Peace of mind. It's important. I was just going to touch on, I don't know if you wanted me to go next, because I'm just going to jump on the social media stuff quickly and how that keeps changing, how it's so important for photographers to get their stuff out there. It's one of the platforms that we go to presumably daily, not necessarily daily. I know some people are doing a couple times a week, but the algorithms on Instagram in particular keep changing on us, and it's hard to know exactly what those are, but there have been shifts that have impacted some things this late spring, early summer. And it seems as though, from the research I've been doing, because it's a platform that I've remained active on for interaction with, a network of friends that I've got to know through that, but also for marketing purposes. And, it hasn't been a windfall, I'll tell you that, for the time invested, but clients do find me through Instagram of various sorts around the world. So it's still worth doing, but something that's changed that I've only discovered by watching a variety, and never trusting any one in particular, but a variety of YouTube channels, content creators talking about it, is that Instagram, there are these competing platforms out there with Facebook and YouTube and TikTok that all pay their content creators for videos or content that gets a lot of attention. And they do so through their advertising. They put ads on them for the most part and collect revenue, and then give a portion of that to the content creator. And Instagram wasn't doing that. But Instagram is, from what I've heard, a very successful company monetarily. So, content creators that are generating revenue from YouTube or Facebook or TikTok, and since Facebook owns Instagram, it seems as though that's switching on Instagram, that the rumor has it, or the feeds have it on YouTube, the shows that I've been watching, that they're going to start paying. But it doesn't sound like at this point that they're paying for photographs. It's more that they want Instagram to develop into a multimedia platform, which is kind of cool in some ways. I know that, a lot of us stem from a purely photograph, still photo pastime, the content that we create. But we all have these cameras that are evolving to be superb at collecting video. And there are many instances where video is more engaging. And a lot of us have great smartphones that can do that as well for storytelling or taking people along on the trip, like I enjoy doing. So Instagram has, for a while now had stories, they've had reels, and they have Instagram TV. And they're all fun to create content on, but it's time commitment. And all these platforms want us to be on there as long as possible, because it creates traction for their platform. So it's fun to create Instagram TV. The clips can be done more than a minute in length, whereas reels, I believe at this point in time, are capped at a minute. Most reels are vertical that seem to get traction because that's the TikTok trend. So food for thought. If you're out filming and you're filming yourself with your camera and the scene off behind you, think about shooting it vertical for that application, but YouTube's horizontal. So what do? But you can post horizontal on reels as well. And anyway, it's just fun to engage in this stuff, but it seems as though Instagram is transitioning, thankfully, and I'm not in this window at this point in time, but to generate revenue for content creators. So for those of you that devote a lot of time to it and post regularly and get that kind of traction, it's something to be aware of. And it seems also, I've been on this in multiple levels reviewing it, in the sense that when you look at your insights for where you're getting traction, Instagram is keeping your posts, which are your still photos or videos on there for that matter, your stories, your reels, and your Instagram TV separate on their statistical analysis. So it's almost like they want you to do, obviously, all of those as frequently, well, daily, but I can't do that daily time-wise. I can't justify that. But it's just interesting to see how this platform that so many of us in the photography world have been engaged in for so long continues to change and evolve, and obviously trying to encapsulate some more video content possibilities. Another thing I've realized too of interest is that when you create a reel, and I talked about this months ago on the podcast, it's really fun to do. You can do various videos in one reel as long as it's a minute, I believe. I think it used to be 30 seconds and they've made it longer. You can do a variety of them to tell a story, but then you can also, if you want, you pick your cover image. So that's another step that's good for grabbing attention. You can put a caption, but you can also select music. And I've found with their algorithm, it seems as though the music variety available depends on at some threshold of followers. I haven't researched it to know exactly what the different thresholds are, but for instance, our Wild and Exposed Instagram page, which I hope you're all following, we put a variety of content on there, is a little over 10,000 followers. And so on Reels, it has an allotment of music that you can, for free, put on to add appeal to that video that you're posting. On my Instagram feed, because I've just been doing it for a few years longer than the Wild and Exposed one, it's at 35,000 approximately followers. The opportunity or the variety of music I have to choose from is far greater, and it saves me time in that sense when I create a reel, because I can think of a piece of music, popular music, that really goes well with the mood I'm feeling for what I want to put out there for viewers to watch. I can find it far faster with the greater variety of selection. So that was something surprising that I seem to discover. At least that seems to be the case. If any of you have had different experience, let me know, because this is always evolving, and I'm trying to learn and share information that expedites these process and is the best benefit to all the listeners out there. But so if you're in the field, tell your stories with some videos or create reels, because it seems like Instagram is showing some favor to that for traction. I've just started experimenting with it the past week or so. If you've seen on my feed where I've been doing more reels and more Instagram TV, and I'll obviously follow up on it in future podcasts to let you know if it really boosted traction or not. Another thing I've recently read or seen on other YouTube content influencers who, some claim to have insider information. Who knows? But I have reduced hashtags recently, where I always, for 5 years, used 30 hashtags because that was allowed, in many recommendations. Various sites were saying do it. Some didn't, but most are saying make use of it. It seems as though that with this new algorithm, they're saying 8 to 15 or closer to 8. So this past week, I've just been using 8. Another thing is going to take time, and I'll give feedback on whether that seemed to work, because what I'll do is I'll use 8 for a bit. I know this is diving in deep for a lot of you and maybe more information than necessary, but I'll switch back and see what it does. But anyway, it's a lot of time. If you don't have it, don't stress over it, right? I mean, we got to live life, but it's for those that want to share their work, it seems to still be one of the best ways to do it. I mean, who looks up websites, right? These days, people find it through social media. They'll find your website, but it seems like social media is still one of the best ways to be discovered. And so there, just to conclude, put up good stuff, right? Low res. I watermark mine. iWatermark app is great. No sponsorship there. It's just something that I've used for a long time. for both video and stills, and low resolution, and and a good caption. Don't post a recommendation from my experience. If you don't have an image you feel is going to resonate well with people, I wouldn't post it. I would make sure that what I post creates a variety within my niche, but also is visually appealing and a complimentary caption. That's my feedback. Maybe some content creators say, post every day, no matter what, quality or not. But I think quality still resonates with viewership, especially if you're serious about your photography and you want to attract clients, whether it's art collectors, whether it's publishers, whatever it may be. If they're going to find your feed and scroll down, you want that to be as good a representation of what you create as possible without stressing about it. We're having fun. This is photography. It's about the experience and loving this creative pastime that we're all continually learning with.
So Mark, I think your your advice is all spot on, and it's interesting. It really depends on what you're doing it for, right? I think it matters what you're doing it for. And if you're one of these accounts that's really trying to grow, I've noticed the ones that seem to be growing consistently are the ones like, and I'll mention, it's actually a very interesting page sometimes, but Busy Wild, the dark side of nature, nature's metal, some of these pages that are growing so fast and you're seeing them consistently grow, and they're posting 3 and 4 times a day, and they're constantly posting a steady stream of stories. And, a lot of these sites are sharing other people's work and sharing other people's content. So it's easy for them to do that, right? But my point is, I think that's the key to grow it quickly, but then you're getting a bunch of followers that just want to see whatever you're posting. I think for what we do, if you were to do that, I don't know if it would work as well. Or if you might get a bunch of new followers, but are they kind of followers you want? Are they the kind of people that are going to bring you some value, buy prints, maybe editors and that might be looking at your work to use? You know what I mean? I guess my point is I'm trying to make is that I think it just really matters on what your goal is with the social media platform that you're working with.
Well, what's the point in growing it if there isn't some opportunity to sell some form of content from what you're doing? I mean, there's obviously a social aspect, but really, I don't think many people have time to do hours every day unless there's a hope, a dream of it catching hold and making them revenue, right? So another on the story front, I tried something different this week, and friends of mine have done it, and I didn't realize the potential traction difference. But my stories typically get anywhere from 800 to 12 or 1,400 views on a story, and I did a story this week with a quiz, and it jumped off the charts to like 4,000 or 5,000. But it was also combined with doing a reel and a post. So I'm wondering, and again, this is all trial and error at the moment, but if I'm going to keep doing this, if doing 2 or 3 different types of media presentation on that page that day combines to do a boost, or whether it was just the fact that a quiz is more engaging to people. I showed an elk rub and I was standing beside it, and I just jokingly said, "What made this? Was it moose, elk, Sasquatch, or Mark?" And I followed up with another story showing the elk that made it. But it was 5 times what I normally get, right? And again, I'm not sure if it's because I also posted a reel that day or whether it's quiz-based. But so in your stories, have fun with them. There are ways to be creative with that. Make it a question quiz. There's various artistic tools that you can complement the photo or video that you're posting in your story to engage people. But I think it boils down to, for serious photographers who are selling their work or want to be selling their work, it's always quality first. And I always personally make sure it's low res and I watermark mine. A lot of people don't. I don't know why, but it doesn't seem, I know of many pages that do super well, even with big watermarks. So I don't think it hurts. And anyway, but my point is, if you want to sell, then it should be as good a representation of your portfolio as it can be. Not to say you have to put up your absolute best if you don't want to, but you have to have a gut check, and this is where you're at, and hopefully it will get attention. And you can also tag, various things that you want to draw attention to, as far as places or that you could sell to as well. That's a long pro tip.
That was a long pro tip.
A long pro tip.
And if you'd like to understand and perfect the art of not growing your social media presence, check out Ron Hayes _WWI. Because I don't see any growth at all, because I definitely don't put the effort into it, and I don't have time to put the effort into it. So that's probably not going to change.
And I think everybody needs a break now and then too. I think, and on a quick side note, one of the ideas I had for a pro tip today while I was brainstorming was to come up after COVID, where we've all been constrained. And I mean, it's just been such a freaky, weird year and a half. Come up with a project that inspires you with your own work that's going to take you to the next level and get you out there motivated to do something, whether it's in your backyard or further afield. It's an idea to spark, and it's hard right now for a lot of people I know, but spark some motivation that way and be excited about, come up with a photography project for oneself, yourselves. Jason,
how about you?
So the pro tip I'm going to share, it may have been brought up before, but I don't know if it's been brought up this way. If you haven't downloaded the PhotoPills app, I highly suggest that you do. That is a very powerful app, and it's got about everything you can think of from a photography standpoint. And the reason it was meaningful to me and came into play for me is, as I mentioned on my recent elk trip, I started to play a lot with the 70-200. And when I started to play with that, I wasn't familiar with that lens at all, and I wanted to make sure that whatever I was shooting was staying in focus. I was excited about shooting a 2.8, but I also wanted to make sure that the elk was in full focus and I was catching all the right thing. At least the antlers and the head were going to be in focus when I was making my shots. So that PhotoPills app has the ability, you can go in there in the depth of field section and you can type in a 200 millimeters, f2.8, and your distance, and it'll give you your focal plane. So it's a very powerful app. I mean, I just wrote down a bunch of examples. So for example, at 200 millimeters at 30 foot, the f2.8, it's a 1 foot 2 inch focal plane. On the 45 foot, it's 2 foot 7 inches. At 60 foot, it's 4 feet 7 inches. So, shooting it as much smaller, millimeter, 200 millimeters, a little bit further back, and you're getting a lot bigger focal plane, which we all understand. But I think the point I'm trying to make is maybe if you do a little homework before you go out and shoot, then you'll know exactly, the situation you're in, and you can have a better chance of catching what you're trying to catch and making sure everything's in focus. I also ran the numbers at 30 foot for f8, and it doesn't double, but it essentially doubles. 3 foot 3 inches, 45 foot it was 7 foot 4 inches, and 60 foot it was 13 feet 2 inches. So the 200 millimeter at f8 at 60 feet has a focal plane of almost 14 feet. So, and compare that with the 600, right? The 600 millimeter at 60 feet at f4 is 8.5 inches.
So it compresses it quite a bit more. So that's correct. Why you get, those prime lenses get that beautiful bokeh, because it does shorten the depth of field.
Right. But and then it on the 600 millimeter at f8 at 40 yards or 120 feet, you have about a 5.5 foot focal plane. So again, what's been mentioned before, and if you're trying to shoot elk in the rut, for example, in your 600 millimeter, you may want to shoot at a higher aperture than f4, depending on how close you are and what the search situation is. So just a reminder to do that, maybe get that app. It's fairly inexpensive. It's worth the money. It does cost, but it helped me out a ton when I started to play with that f2.8 or that 70 to 200 millimeter lens. And after you shoot for a while, you kind of learn it and you get the feel for it, and you don't really need to go check anymore, right? But for beginning and starting out with it, it helped me a ton.
So I'm going to piggyback on that and say that the guy that was my mentor that kind of got me serious about, I was starting to get serious, but he took me to the next level. John Timmis, he is in the hospital with a brain bleed and some blood clots. So thoughts go out to John and his family. but he was the guy that always said, I would always ask, well, what aperture should I be shooting at? And he said, well, f8 is not f8, it's not f8, it's not f8. And it's because of just what you talked about. So on one lens, f8 is 13 feet. On another lens at the same distance, I'm talking, f8 is 8 inches. So it is that learning curve, and you can't just assume that, yep, I need to shoot at f8 with everything that I've got at this distance, and I'm going to be fine. I was shooting some Swift Fox recently, and at 5.6, at a pretty close proximity, I everything blurred out. The only thing that was in focus was the Swift Fox, and that was it. And it just created this beautiful shot. But you can't do that unless you're shooting, the long lens and a prime. So it does have its advantages. The zoom definitely has its advantages. And the other thing photo pills will do, well, it does so many things. It'll show you exactly where the Milky Way is going to come up if you're an astrophotographer. It'll show you exactly where you just rotate your phone and pick your landmark. It'll tell you exactly where the sun's going to come up, exactly where the moon's going to come up, all those kind of things. So, and what time. It's just like there's another app called the Photographer's Ephemeris. It'll do the same thing. And there's just so many tools in there. Photo Pills is probably one of the best apps that a photographer could have, I think, or the Photographer's Ephemeris, because in the daytime, it'll show you where all the stars are going to be. It'll show you exactly where the Milky Way is going to be. It'll show you the Big Dipper, all those things. So it is a fantastic tool. Dare I say phenomenal tool for a photographer. Yeah, that's a good one. So I was going to, Mike talks about he's always doing gear. I always do the philosophical thing, and that's what I was going to talk about today, going out and, get your shots, but then shoot, once you get your initial shots, start to shoot with the end product in mind after that. And Mark says the same thing, but he just talks, Mark says, work the scene. So, changing your composition, changing your aperture, changing your focal point. That is my pro tip, but shoot with the end result in mind and see in your mind what you want to see when you print it, and then shoot accordingly. And I think the Photographer's Ephemeris, honestly, and the photo pills are tools that can help you do that, because not only, Jason, you talked about it giving you your depth of field with a specific lens at a specific distance, but it will also help you calculate hyperfocal distance. So from where your subject is, so if you want that environmental portrait and you want the environment or the whole landscape to be in focus, the photo pills will help you calculate, number one, if I'm at such and such a distance, if I'm at distance X, what aperture do I need to shoot at to be at a hyperfocal distance where everything in the scene is going to be in focus? And it'll help you calculate that. You just put the numbers in, and boom, it'll spit out the answer quick, and you don't have to experiment. It's correct.
It's pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm. So, Mike, you have another one?
We were talking about hard drives earlier, and we were talking about USB-C cables. When you grab a USB-C cable, all of them are not created equal. So just pay attention when you're looking at data transfers, or if you're buying new cables, just make sure you're putting in USB-C data and not USB-C charging or whatever, because I've noticed it, and I'll just grab a cable out of my bag. I have just a bag full of cables just for all these different situations, and I'll grab one and not think about it, and I'll start a transfer, and all of a sudden it's like snail's pace, and I'll stop it and restart it just because I know that cable is not the right one. I'll restart it I'll go find another cable And what I've done now is I've started putting tape around the cables that are the fast ones so I can find them fast, just because it's so important. And you can find some super fast USB-C cables if you just spend the time. And I can't give you an exact, there's one that I found I really like, and I could put a link to that in the show notes, but it's just a little shorty cable. But it's perfect I can actually show it to you guys. It's perfect for these USB-C drives. It's just a little bitty flat cable.
The braided cable, yeah.
Yeah. But if you're transferring a lot of data, just know that they're not all the same.
And Mark, you're getting the R5. So if you're going to do the video, if you're going to go to anything external like your Ronin, the same thing is true of the micro HDMI, because the R5 doesn't have a regular HDMI. It doesn't even have the mini. It's got the micro. So when you get that cable, make sure you look at data transfer rates as well. Even if you're not going to shoot with an external screen, like a Ninja or another Atomos screen, just to the Ronin itself, you want it to be able to communicate as quickly as possible. So that's true of pretty much everything. Make sure you look at transfer rates.
Good tip. Thank you. Noted.
So, Mark, you were talking about, you wanted to talk about your different RAID systems.
Yeah, I thought I covered that.
Was that going to be a pro tip, or did we get that?
We kind of got most of it done. Yeah, we did everything except for the different types of RAID, but it's all easily found online if you just look up RAID hard drives, and there's a list about RAID 1 through whatever is, and it seems like RAID 0, RAID 1, and RAID 5, from what I've learned, are the most popular. It's just setups of what various hard drives are capable of when you order them, whether it's 2-drive unit or 4 or 5-drive unit. RAID 0, and the whole point of this, just to touch on it quickly, is forever I've had the cheaper external hard drives, all good brands, but it's up to my memory to make sure I've backed everything up. And that's fine, except a hard drive gets full, another one gets full. And what I do is I retire them and put them in safekeeping somewhere and get another one. And then it's like, it gets confusing after a while. And there's some dated files too, so that might need accessing. So instead I've collected a larger RAID system, and then we'll do what the guys talked about and have a large external, also guaranteed locked, stored offsite in a safety deposit box, actually, that I refresh, every month or so, just for safekeeping. But the RAID system, so it's essentially will have that redundancy, protect your files in the event of a hard drive failure, while not having to remember ourselves if we've copied it or where those files are, because everything should be in one place. And RAID 0 splits data evenly across 2 or more drives, so it uses more memory. Whereas RAID 1 is what I've always kind of thought I would go to, where it's the 2 drives that simply mirror each other. So you have to be aware when you order a RAID system what the hard drive memory capacity is. And obviously the more memory, the more expensive they are. And it's usually a housing that has plug and play internal drives that you can order and put in. But if they're both 4 terabyte, well, that's old school. Okay. They're both 12 terabyte, you'd want 2 12s to mirror each other, and that would give you 12. It wouldn't give you 24. It's 12 with 2 12s, because obviously one's a pure backup of the other. But what's more popular now, and sometimes I guess a little more expensive as well, and it's probably in the $2K and up, $2,000 and up window to get a proper sized RAID system, and depending on how much you need. And for people who are switching and doing more and more video at 4 or 8K, it becomes a relevant discussion, as you heard earlier. But the RAID 5 has 4 or more hard drives that just shares data between them, and any one of those drives can fail, and it doesn't affect the integrity of your database. And then it will show you the drive that's failed. You open your unit, it's fanned, it's cooled, all that stuff, right? And you pull that drive out and presumably either have one or order one that's the same and plug it in, and you keep rolling. So there's that redundancy where there's 4 or more drives and one can fail and be pulled out at any time with RAID 5. So, but again, you can search that stuff online, and there are lots of quick and easy reference guides on what the RAID systems are. But it's just peace of mind. And as Michael has talked about numerous times, and when we're in the field and we're shooting more video, more content, more data, it all takes our time. I can sit and back up files manually onto 2 or 3 hard drives, but honestly, I haven't got it yet, but the RAID system's got me really excited because that'll save me time. I don't have to do the backup. It's all done. I just have to do the offsite backup, once every month and move on from there. So that's the appeal of RAID systems for serious photographers or videographers. It's really a go-to because time is life, right? We can be doing something else instead of spending hours deciding and backing up. And as Michael said, okay, well, it's going to take 50 minutes to back up this file to this hard drive, but I wanted to back up to this. It's just time management. So that's the appeal of the RAID system. But my pro tip was actually going to be the shortest pro tip Mark Raycroft's ever done because some of them just go deep here. It was just going to be.
Hold on. Are you gonna leave and go to something completely different?
I am. I'm moving on.
All right. Before you do,
Okay.
just one little thing. You
Yeah.
know how you said if one of them fails, you can put another one and you keep rolling?
Okay.
That's not true. You do keep rolling, but it has to rebuild itself. The last time I had to rebuild one, it was like 18 hours.
Oh, no kidding.
So it takes, it's
So if
not
one
like
fails,
you can just slap it in and go. One fails, you're going to be down for at least a day.
No kidding. Okay.
Right. If you have a 48 terabyte RAID 5 system, which is what I have, there's 8 drives, 8 6-terabyte drives. So if any one of those goes down, there's like 5 or 6 terabytes of memory that is specifically for the rebuild. So you really only have, out of that 48, you only have 42 that's usable. And those 6 terabytes are there for the rebuild. And then if the one goes down, then you plug it in, but it automatically starts the rebuild, but it does take the time to restructure it and rebuild it.
Well, I'm glad you guys brought that up. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that time frame. The other thing, when you think about that, as you just alluded to, Ron, is if you have a 48 terabyte, depending on the size of all the drives, you basically have to subtract the memory of one of those drives from what you actually have available. It's not 48. So keep that in mind when you're pricing out the size of the system you're looking at.
And they do get expensive quick.
Well, that's why I never did it, right? It's like, it's so much. And these are so economical. The external, Western Digital, Seagate, whatever it might be, that are affordable, but it's time management. And the more and more we do this, it's great just to know it's done with the RAID system. So to spin off on a very quick pro tip, when an animal behavior one, to shake it up, when you are, let's say you're in a park, in a national park or something like that with trails, and you're going to go out for an early morning or an evening stroll to find wildlife. Maybe it's an area that there's certain species you expect to find, or maybe it's just random and you're looking for birds, songbirds, and whatever you stumble upon. Actually, songbirds, let's take that out. Mammals. This is about mammals, not songbirds. But whatever you might stumble upon, keeping the light in mind if it's clear, but if it's a cloudy day, it doesn't matter. Play the wind. That's always critical for approaching mammals, because unless it's in a situation where they are habituated to people, if it's that popular destination. But for me, whenever I'm in the far north with caribou, with moose, it's a matter of glassing a subject and then saying, okay, there's an amazing animal and a great scene, working the light first and foremost. But if we approach the animal heading into the wind, so the wind is coming from the animal, or the breeze from the animal to us, it's far more likely that we're going to get within photographic range of the subject than if we ignore what the breeze is doing, just randomly walk toward it. So it's something just to keep in mind. They're all, their sense of smell is far superior to ours, and as much as most of us smell wonderful to ourselves, we don't to them. So keep breeze in mind. If you're just walking trails, if you have a choice to enter at this end of the trail, a mile or two down, or this end, and pick the one with the breeze to your favor if you're hoping to walk up and see mammals. Not bears. Don't do that with bears, but other subjects. Coyotes, you never know what you'll see. But yeah, keep the wind to your favor. Quick tip.
I was taking notes.
Yeah. It's it's a straightforward, common sense one, but when people, not every,
No.
might not think about it when they just head out to somewhere and they're going to go for a morning walk. If they park down here, then they might have better luck.
No, I wasn't saying that for that reason at all. I was saying that because I'm going to shoot bears next week. And so that's why I was taking notes. So I won't do that with the bears.
No, you almost want them to smell you so they know you're there.
Right. Exactly. Just the opposite.
Yes. Yeah. Be known.
So this one's going to be, it's like a no-brainer. And matter of fact, when I learned this, I was like, it was one of those duh moments for me. So hopefully it'll be a good tip and a duh moment for somebody else, right? But in Lightroom, I was having a hard time making sure that my whites were white. Whenever I sit in front of the monitor for long enough, my colors start to really get weird on me. And there's a lot, I mean, we've all mentioned before, when I get that way, I like to walk away, leave it alone for an hour or something, come back, and then, okay, yeah, I see what's going on. My eyes can readjust and I can see it. But one of the little tricks I learned, and I think it was actually you, Ron, that showed me this, but when you're editing snowy images or white images and you're trying to see that your whites are really white or as close to white as possible, there in Lightroom, the border that's around your image, I think it defaults to gray, but you can actually change that to white. And it's such a simple thing, but that was a game changer for me. And it really helped me a ton with trying to calibrate and make sure my whites were really looking white. So that was a big one for me. And then this is another one that I think you showed me, Ron, when we were playing around one night. When you're adjusting any of your sliders in Lightroom, you can actually hold the Alt key down on a PC. I don't know what it is on a Mac, sorry. But on a PC, you can hold the Alt key down and Option or Alt. You can hold that down and move your slider, and you'll see when you're going too far. It'll turn it to basically like a black and white, and it'll show you how much of the image it's impacting or how significantly it's impacting your image. And that's kind of a quick little tip too that has helped me in my editing process. But so easy ones, guys, I know, and most people are probably like, yeah, where have you been? But that's something I learned a few months ago, and it helped a ton. So
absolutely. And, for the 15 people who didn't, or who could be far, far more, who didn't know that.
It's probably two, maybe.
But to help anybody, it's great. I hadn't heard that. That's fantastic.
Mine was just going to be, we've all been cooped up, and not necessarily cooped up because we've still been able to get out and that kind of thing. But don't forget that, as things start to get back to a sense of normalcy and you're getting back together with people, just to get out there. Epic shiznit happens every day in the wild, and we got to be out there to see it. We got to be out there to photograph it, be out there just to observe it. So get out, get away from people. That's honestly been the hardest thing for me with things kind of getting back going again, is being around the number of people that I've been around lately. Having had alone time for a year almost, I miss the quiet. And so I like to get out and just get away and enjoy the silence a little bit.
You're becoming a hermit.
No, I'm not becoming a hermit. It just got solidified over the last year. I've been a hermit for a long time. But that's, you look at the images that people get, and it's not because they were sitting on their couch, and it's not because they were out there on a specific day in a specific area and on a specific animal. It's just because they were out there, and observing and learning, and then it makes it easier to predict where and how to get the shot. And I think that is critical, that we just spend time out there, spend time observing, like we always talk about, learning behavior cues that most people wouldn't catch. So that's my last one. Just get out there.
No, words to live by. That's my motto. Got to get out there. Can't shoot those photos from the couch. So I love it.
Yeah. And then this this company that I've been doing some work for, the guy that owns the company has got my new favorite quote, and my kids are already tired of hearing it. But the value of what you learn when you try always outweighs the cost. And I think get out there and try something new. Try something new in your editing, try something new in your shooting, try something new just with your camera, try some video if you never have. even though you might not get the end result that you're looking for the first time, what you learn in the process is going to be worth the effort.
Yeah, that's what photography is about. The visual joy of living life. It's an amazing planet. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, to another episode of Wild and Exposed. You can find more of our content on our website, wildandexposed.com. Lots to discover there. Check it out. All our previous podcasts going back over the years can be found there, along with the show notes and the images and things that were talked about. Scroll through and find those that are the most appealing and have a listen. So a lot of great content, a lot of fantastic guests over the years and more to come. Also, our YouTube channel, it's evolving all the time, and videos are put up every week that we can, and another one going up, well, doesn't matter from when tonight's recorded, but another one tomorrow. They keep rolling. So check it out at Wild and Exposed Podcast on YouTube, on that platform, as well as our social media on Instagram and Facebook. Please give us a thumbs up, the positive reviews, as those help us to gain traction in this busy world of podcasting. I want to give a special quick shout out to a few people who put stories about Wild and Exposed on their social media this week. Drew Hamilton, Joe Soboleski, and Photogenet in Norway. Awesome. She put up the hat that she loves. She's wearing it in Norway. You can find the Wild and Exposed swag. As I've said before in other podcasts, it's good stuff. Our crew has ordered it. We wear it. We love it. It's a great company. So check that out. It helps to support our efforts as well. And it's been great, guys. It's been too long. Jason, brother, live it up on this adventure. I can't wait to hear how it unfolds. And I know our listeners will be dialed in for a future podcast for that, where Jason is immersed in the world of brown bears and more. So super stoked. Heading out tomorrow from after this is recorded. But yeah, Michael in Alaska, keep living the dream. Up there, the long days in the summertime, never ending energy. Ron, the guy who finally did it, stepped out into the world of professional photography, fulfilling the dream, shooting all kinds of stuff, video, stills. High five, brother. Once again, everybody, thanks for joining us. You've been listening to Wild and Exposed Podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
You've been listening to the Wild and Exposed Podcast. If you haven't yet, please give us a rating and a review. And make sure you're subscribed so that you'll get every episode we produce as soon as we drop it. And as always, thanks for tuning in.
We're gonna make it someday. Nothing's gonna get in our way.